Hello, and welcome to Beyond Books, where we talk about books and beyond. I'm your host. I'm Renee, co-host Raina. Snack of the day today is going to be chicken jerky cuts with a picture of Raina right there. Looks kind of similar to her. And today we're going to talk about another banned book. Now, this is my 13th banned book so far this year. The genres on this book are historical fiction, classics, and adventure. It was also a buddy read for me. I read this along with Mimi of It's Mimi Duong and Daniela of Uncommon Reader. And the book I'm talking about is The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Now, we probably all know his actual name was Samuel Clemens, and he was around from 1835 till 1910. He was an American writer, humorist, and essayist. He also worked as a printer's apprentice, a pilot of a steamboat that ran the Mississippi from St. Louis to New Orleans. He also had a brief stint as a Confederate soldier and as a miner on the Comstock lode. So despite the fact that he made good money from his writings, he was said to have financial troubles throughout his life. And now it's interesting because as far as his political leanings or philosophies are concerned, it seems that, Clemens was kind of all over the board with views that would range from something we would call liberal to all the way to conservative. He was pro-labor. He admired the self-made man. He did not trust the government. He advocated for imperialism. He did not support welfare, and he was anti-authoritarian. Consider this quote from him. "I am said to be a revolutionist in my sympathies, by birth, by breeding, and by principle. I am always on the side of the revolutionists because there never was a revolution unless there were some oppressive and intolerable conditions against which to revolute." So I thought that was an interesting quote from him, and I think it makes a little more sense as I go through my book review. Overall, it sounds to me like he put his faith and trust in the common man rather than institutions, and that's likely what made him popular as a writer and an essayist. In many ways, he was a man of the people. His views also changed over the course of his lifetime, probably mostly due to the extensive world traveling that he did, and the fact that he lived during a time of great change in our country where slavery was abolished. So his humor also leaned now towards satire. So I'm not sure we can take everything that he wrote or even said as a pure reflection of what he really thought. So I'll warn you now that you can find many quotes from Samuel Clemens, again reflecting a wide range of opinions, some likely not so popular and some that have really not stood up to the test of time. So, what's up with the adventures of Huckleberry Finn? Well, we probably all know something about the story, but I'll still give a brief synopsis without spoilers, in case you're like me and you can't remember if you read it, when you read it, or what you read if you did. So first, let's start out with the fact that it was published in 1885. It is set in the Civil War era. The book is. It's written in a poor Southern Black dialect that reflects the times. It is a continuation of the adventures of Tom Sawyer. So if you are serious about reading both, it's probably best to read Tom Sawyer first. So who is Huck Finn? What do we want to say about him? Well, he's a young boy of 14 who escapes an abusive father by running away with an enslaved African-American man named Jim. They escape by raft and they head south down the Mississippi River. Now, it doesn't seem too bright to head south with a runaway slave, but they are specifically looking for a place called Cairo. I saw signs for Cairo when I drove to St. Louis. Cairo is a town at the junction of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers where Jim could have looked possibly for a canoe and traveled upriver to the northern free states. However, and now this is a bit of a spoiler here, so if you want to jump ahead by 30, 40 seconds, that would be fine. By the time they got to that junction, there are search parties out looking for Jim specifically or just runaway slaves in general. And in the thick fog one night, they unfortunately pass the river junction and they have no choice then but to continue south. They meet several interesting characters along the way, and towards the end of the book, they even meet up with Tom Sawyer again. I think that's all that I really probably need to say about the plot. So let's talk about the bands. What about the bands? Well, this one goes way back. Within 1 month of its publishing, there were bans against it. So that's back in, 1885. But it didn't stop there. It is currently number 33 still on the decade's top 100 banned and challenged books. I'm going to put the camera down so you can see Raina a little better. There we go. So bans and challenges continue, but they have definitely changed focus during the past 140 years. I'm going to quote an article from pbs.org, to which I will put a link in the description. And it says that many of the early challenges to the adventures of Huckleberry Finn came from white people, librarians who did not like the language that Twain used. The librarians at the time, specifically in Missouri, took umbrage at the use of backwards talking. They thought that he was speaking to a lower class of folks. They thought the language was just too rough. They didn't take umbrage at his using racial slurs, rather it was the dialect. The NAACP in the 50s lodged the first major complaint about the novel's use of the N-word over and over and over. There are more than 200 times that word is used throughout the course of this novel. The most recent and most sustained argument against Mark Twain is, how can a white man write about racism? He has no right to write about anything that did not affect him. Okay, so what did I think about that? Well, first, the dialect used in the book can be very difficult to understand. I think there are some sentences that I probably still haven't quite figured out what he was trying to say. But that's Mark Twain. It's a little difficult to figure out where he's coming from sometimes as it is. I'm not always sure exactly how to take him, to be honest. Is he using humor? If he is it satirical? I was a little thrown off by the whole thing with that. especially considering the fact that I mostly read contemporary books and have for quite some time. So the humor of the time of this novel, it can be quite different, as well as the dialect. Now, I wouldn't say he's necessarily speaking to a lower class, but it's more like he's speaking through a lower class. He's poking fun, I think, at all of us, showing our hypocrisies and prejudices. But there's a lot of ways that he exposes the upper class as well. For one thing, there's Huck's strong desire not to be civilized, and that's spelled with an S rather than a C. Now, regarding the racial slurs, yeah, it gets very tiring to hear the N-word over and over and over. It starts to sound more and more ignorant each time. I started to really feel angry about the use of that word just on its own. But the whole way that slavery, of course, is exposed and discussed in the book, and the way Jim was treated, all of that made me feel angry. I look forward to reading the book James by Percival Everett, just to hear Jim's side of the tale and his ideas as a person, because I don't feel like he was treated as a whole person at all. Huck and even Tom Sawyer, I think, really liked James, and they were good friends with him, but they did treat him differently. And he was very loyal and very kind to the both of them. I think we need everyone to write about slavery. I don't think that there should be, the distinction that certain people can't write about it. Because no matter what their race or cultural background is, I think that they have something to say about the subject. And when I say slavery, I don't just mean in the US either, but everywhere around the world. It affects all of us, and I would even go so far as to say that our history with slavery still has an effect today on us all as Americans. So I say keep the discussion going in any way that you can. That's why I'm against bans in the first place. I feel like it just stops the process of learning, discussing, and processing everything that went on. And I think that those lines of communication should stay open. So now, what did I think of the book as a whole? I expected this book to be fun and adventuresome, and to some extent, yeah, absolutely, it was. But I also went through a lot of different feelings with this book, and that's something that I kind of didn't expect, to be truthful. First, there was the anger, as I mentioned, the hypocrisy and the unfairness of it all. There are funny parts to the book as well, but I expected the humor to be a little bit more fun-loving and light, but it's really not. There's some biting satire here, and definitely humor is used as one of the tools to expose the self-deception and inconsistencies among the characters that Huck meets up with. His own prejudices are also exposed, but I think in all, Huck grows and matures over the course of the story. At first, he was very torn about hiding Jim, because Jim was lawfully considered at the time to be someone's property. And Huck was thinking that this may be morally wrong. But later in the novel, it becomes less of an issue, and he defends Jim just as another human being, regardless of the law as it stands at the time. I'm not sure he gets to a point where he sees Jim as an individual man, but he does grow. I like the character of Huck Finn for that reason. He's easygoing, but he's also introspective, and he's not afraid to change. He realizes that he still has a lot of growing up to do. Tom Sawyer now is generally considered to be a more fun-loving and carefree character than Huck. And in general, I would say, yeah, that's probably true. However, I found myself getting angry again at the ridiculous tricks he plays on Jim at the end. And again, I just don't feel he would have taken everything as far as he did had he felt a true respect for Jim as a person. I don't see the self-awareness in Tom Sawyer that I see in Huck. And I want to read this Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Maybe his character will be cast in a more likable light for me in that novel. I think it's only fair since I did have such a strong reaction to him. Finally, I felt a profound sadness for Jim. His wife and his children were sold away from him, and they were all in different places, split apart by slavery. His dream during the book is to get to a free state and to start working, save all his money, and then go and purchase his wife's freedom for her. Then together, they could work towards buying the freedom for their children. I felt so bad for him when they weren't able to find Cairo, where he could start to travel north and start working on that project. Instead, the great mysterious river, shrouded in a thick fog, took him deeper and deeper into the south. It's a metaphor for life. We go by fate and faith into the unknown. And there is a force that we cannot control. So how would I rate this book? Well, it has a 3.8 on Goodreads. It has a 4.4 on Amazon. But I'm not going to give it a star rating. It's an American classic. I enjoyed it. I didn't expect to feel so many conflicted and strong feelings about it. One thing that struck me too, it's considered an American classic, but America does not always come off looking like any kind of a utopia in this novel. Maybe the environment and the nature aspect and the times that Huck and Jim feel free on the raft, drifting unburdened by the conventions of society. Sure. But for a place known as the land of the free and the home of the brave, not so much in this novel. Maybe my perspective is a little skewed by some of the recent events here in the United States, but I think Mark Twain was trying to put us on notice. I think he was saying, take a hard look and really see what's going on. Do these situations say free or brave to you? Could we do better? Anyway, those are my thoughts on this unexpectedly thought-provoking American classic. I want to say thank you to Amy and Daniela for taking me along on this buddy read. I will be very anxious to see both your reviews and hear what you have to say. I will put links to both those reviews in the description. And as always, I want to say thank you so much for watching. One more snack for the road. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And have a great day.